translation, which is labeled as the German channel for everyone. So if you're listening in English but would like to hear Vietnamese, please go into the German channel. If you're listening to the main audio session and there are remarks provided in Vietnamese and you need to hear the English translation, please go into the German channel. So it's an option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. It's an easy transition, and I will also include logistical notes on how to do this in the chat box for everyone's reference. And with that announcement, I am going to go ahead and turn everything over to our CEO, Brian Finley.
Courtney, thank you so much for helping to put all of this together. We're very grateful to you, my colleague Courtney Weatherby. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to what is for us going to be a very special event at Stimson. Obviously, we wish we could be welcoming you all in person to the Stimson Center, but we're really grateful for this opportunity to reach so many of you across the country and really around the world. My name is Brian Finley. I'm the president and CEO here at Stimson. For those of you that know Stimson well, you know that the center has a long history of working to address the impacts of conflict on civilians around the world and build practical and creative solutions for a more sustainable and peaceful future. And nowhere is that more true in our work than it is in Southeast Asia. In 2018, our team, ably led by my friend and colleague Brian Eiler, began work on the War Legacies Working Group, which builds partnerships between organizations, individuals throughout the United States and really across Southeast Asia to address the consequences of the Vietnam War. Now, addressing the consequences of war, of course, is not just the humanitarian thing to do. It creates fundamentally new opportunities for mutually beneficial partnerships among erstwhile enemies. This year, we mark the 25th anniversary, of course, of the normalization of relations between the United States and Vietnam. Now, despite the shared history of war and its tragic legacies, Vietnam really has become, I think we can all agree, a key American partner in the Indo-Pacific region. From his earliest days in the United States Senate, Patrick Leahy worked to make right America's relationship with Vietnam. I think the naming of the Leahy War Victims Fund is just one recognition of what has been a series of, and really a career of remarkable contributions that the Senator has made to bilateral relations, whether working on the issue of American service members missing in action, working to address the enduring scourge of landmines and unexploded ordnance in the country, and more broadly across the region. I really can think of no other American that has been more responsible for addressing the consequences of the Vietnam War and for the betterment of relations between our two countries than has Senator Patrick Leahy. So, Senator, we know that there are a couple of other things I understand happening in Washington right now. Your presence, though, here with us is an honor for us, but I think it's also indicative, sir, of the seriousness and the respect with which you continue to afford this relationship and the respect you give as well to the people of Vietnam. So, sir, I'm very grateful to you for making the time to be here, and the floor is yours, Senator.
Well, thank you very, very much for those kind words. And I appreciate what you've done. I'm talking with Tim Reeser, the tremendous work all of you have done. And I know Ambassador Quinbrake is on here. And Dan, I'm delighted you're there. And my friend, Ambassador Nock, Charles Bailey, has given us so much information, good advice, and Susan Hammond, who's a fellow Vermonter. But especially to thank the Stimson Center. I appreciate the kind words toward me, but I think I'll turn them right back to the Stimson Center. You've been an indispensable advocate and supporter of reconciliation between the United States and Vietnam for so many years. And I don't use the word indispensable lightly. like John McCain, John Kerry, Bobby Mueller, other Vietnam veterans who led the campaign for reconciliation. You provide the vision and the advice that have contributed to progress we've achieved so far. Compare the relations between the United States and Vietnam to what they were 25 years ago. And look at them today. It is remarkable. Normalization was a big step forward. But back then, I don't think any of us could have predicted or even imagined we'd be at this point today. Many of us know people who served in the war on both sides. I think all of us recognize that the war was a disaster for both countries, and the tragic consequences remain with us 45 years later. But we also share a recognition that we want the future to be different, and that has meant dealing honestly with the past. The ambassador has been a real partner in this effort, starting even before he was posted to Washington. And having good ambassadors in Washington and Vietnam for both countries helps us so much. And we would never have gotten to where we are if it were not for the willingness of the government of Vietnam over the past 40 years to help locate the remains of American MIAs. The importance of that cooperation can't be overstated. And while it's taken far too long, I'm very pleased that this year we're starting on a new 5-year partnership between the U.S. Department of Defense, USAID, Vietnam's Ministry of Defense, to help the Vietnamese recover the remains of MIAs. I think of all the ways we've worked together to address the legacies of the war, this may turn out to be the most meaningful, certainly for the families of the missing, but also for our two governments. While we know that the remains of many of the hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese who died will never be found, we're going to help in ways that can make a real difference. We'll continue to assist the many thousands of disabled Vietnamese victims of landmines and other unexploded bombs, which began with the Legacy War Victims Fund 30 years ago. Vietnam remains heavily contaminated with these hidden killers. We have to continue to work to get rid of them. We'll continue to help Vietnamese with severe cognitive and physical disabilities and to clean up the sites contaminated with dioxin from Agent Orange. Bien Hoa Air Base project is of a scale and complexity unlike anything we have done before. And it speaks to the confidence of both governments in what we can achieve together. And in time of great uncertainty in the world, we're fortunate that we worked together over the past 25 years on reconciliation by focusing on war legacy issues. Now, we know it has not always been easy, but despite our differences, it is because of these joint efforts that Vietnam today is one of our closest partners in East Asia. We both need each other and will work together. And as we commemorate the 25th anniversary of normalization, I think not only of how far we have progressed during these years, but of the next generation who were born long after the war ended. What will the next 25 years be like for them? Will they carry on and expand what we started, not just on war legacies, but in addressing the challenges of climate change, the growing demand for clean energy, competition for scarce resources, and regional threats to peace and security? I have a lot of hope for Vietnam because, like many of you, I've met some of the next generation in Hanoi, Da Nang, and Ho Chi Minh City. They're as smart and as enthusiastic and as determined to succeed as young people anywhere. And they want Vietnam to play an active and positive role in the international community. We can all be part of how far our two countries have come in overcoming the tragic legacies of the war and building a comprehensive partnership. If we continue on the path we're on, I think we can be optimistic about the years ahead. So I thank you, and I'll continue to work with you.
Senator, thank you so much, sir, for those remarks, but more importantly, for your service to the bilateral relationship between the United States and Vietnam. I know, sir, that you have a couple of other things on your schedule here, and you're going to have to rig off shortly. We're grateful for your service in the Senate, and thank you, sir, for making a couple of minutes to join this virtual celebration of the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. Thank you. Ambassador Ngoc arrived in Washington back in 2018 as Vietnam's ambassador to the United States, and clearly Vietnam has sent their very best, which is perhaps a testament to the importance for Vietnam of its relationship with the United States as well. Ambassador Ngoc's appointment came after what has been a truly remarkable foreign service career that includes service as not just the deputy minister, multiple appointments throughout the ministry, service to the embassy in Tokyo as vice consul to in San Francisco, and a host of other responsibilities. He has served in the diplomatic corps in Vietnam since 1988. And on a more personal note, Ambassador, he has become a great friend of the Stimson Center in his time here in Washington as well. Ambassador, you'll recall, I think, that you delivered your very first public remarks as ambassador at the Stimson Center to kick off the activities of our War Legacies working group. Progress, obviously, on the war legacy issue, as the senator referenced, really is the cornerstone of the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. And Ambassador, we here at Stimson, I will say, are deeply committed to furthering progress on that, and really want to apply ourselves in service to that objective. The Foreign Ministry of Vietnam is a core supporter and even donor to the War Legacies Working Group. And Ambassador, we're deeply honored to have you join us today. The floor is yours, sir. Oh, Ambassador, we still have you on mute, sir. There we go.
Yeah, thank you, Brian Feely, for your kind introduction. The Honorable Senator Patrick Leahy, Ambassador Dan Christenbrink, colleagues and friends. The keynote speech of Senator Leahy is so impressive, and I completely agree with Mr. Senator that the vision, the determination, and goodwill by both sides have helped us to reconciliate and become close partners today. I very much appreciate the initiative by the Stimson Center, especially the War Legacy Working Group, and thanks for inviting me to attend this webinar. This is a meaningful event to highlight the 25th anniversary of our diplomatic relations, given the complex development of COVID-19. And I'm very happy to see so many American friends, including my special friend and counterpart, Ambassador Christenbrink, from the other side of the Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, in few bilateral relationships do we see the addressing of war legacy issues playing as important a role and contributing as substantively to the diplomatic normalization process, the improvement of overall ties, and the deepening of trust, as in the relationship between the United States and Vietnam. It seems that the vicious war, with its catastrophic consequences, could divide our two nations forever. But addressing war legacy issues has become glue connecting our two people closer. After all, the game changer is the determination by both sides to leave the past behind, look forward the future. It is also the responsibility, the morality, the compassion, and the deepest sympathy that we have shared with each other. All those have helped us to overcome our own limits, to reach out and work with the other side in the spirit of reconciliation, healing, and building trust between our two nations, as Mr. Senator just said. And the process of cooperation in addressing war legacies has shown the best of the American people. This has made profound changes in the mindset of the Vietnamese people about the United States and American people after the war. We could be proud of what we have achieved during the past 25 years. It is worth to mention the accounting for American MIAs that was started quite soon after the war and paved the way for normalization process later on. And then the United States has helped us um, in helping the war victims in Vietnam, remediated dioxin in Da Nang and now Bien Hoa airports, clearing UXOs. And most recently, the US side has accelerated the assistance to recover the remains of Vietnam soldiers. The tireless and great efforts by the government, Congress, NGOs, and people of our two countries have been helping to heal the wounds left by the war. We can see the smiles and hope in the eyes of Agent Orange victims who have never enjoyed true peace, though the war ended 45 years ago. And the dead lands and deserted areas have been revived after UXO's clearing and dioxin remediation and turned into populous areas covering with green trees, flowers, and fruit full of life. Many American and Vietnamese families welcome home the remains of their loved ones, and many war victims and their families have received medical treatment and assistance for developing household economy. On behalf of the government and people of Vietnam, I wish to express our sincere appreciations to all American friends who are present here today and those who do not attend this webinar. You have made possible the impossible. We wish to pay our tribute to Senator Patrick Leahy, a great friend of Vietnam, former Senator John Kerry and late Senator John McCain, and many other distinguished individuals who have been champions in the process of normalization and development of our bilateral ties, including addressing war legacies. With your deep passion, strategic vision, and political will, you all have helped our two countries overcome their bitter past and start a new era of friendship and cooperation. Thank you so much, Senator Patrick Leahy, for your strong support for war legacy assistance projects, including dioxin remediation and accounting for Vietnamese soldiers missing in actions. And you are a real fighter to defend those projects at the Congress. And with this in mind, we also very much appreciate our close and dear friend Tim Rizzer, advisor to Senator Leahy, for his long time and consistent and invaluable contribution. On this occasion, please show our gratitude to our peacetime heroes. They are Vietnamese and Americans who devoted their lives to address war legacies. Some of them never came back, and some of them have been suffering the injuries while searching for the remains of the soldiers missing in action or clearing UXOs. I would like to honor NGOs who have helped to make the difference in this noble mission. It was the War Legacy Project of Susan Hammond to help victims of Agent Orange, Operation Smile of Dr. William and Kathleen Maggie to bring smiles to thousands of Vietnamese children who have cleft palate due to the effect of Agent Orange, Peachtree Vietnam with Ha Pham, and with very effective UXO project in Quang Tri, or Root of Peace of Heidi Kun, to turn minefields into green fields of pepper and grapes, or Children of Vietnam of Nancy Lettery to bring clean water and school sanitation for children in Vietnamese schools. And there are many, many other organizations and individuals that I cannot name them all today. Last but not least, our thanks also go to the World Legacy Working Group at Stimson for your great efforts to advocate the World Legacy issue for the attention of the administration and Congress and mobilizing resources among donors in the United States. I really hope that the group will help the younger generation in the US administration and Congress understand more about the history of our two countries' relations and join our efforts or even expand our works of healing and reconciliation. You have us, the Embassy of Vietnam, in this process. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot rewrite the history, but with our common efforts, we are creating a brighter future of our bilateral partnership in the next 25 years or even 100 years. Why not? To deal with the common challenges that Senator Leahy just mentioned. We build the future based on our meaningful and effective cooperation, and addressing war legacies is our success story. This is not only the model of reconciliation between two former foes becoming friends and now comprehensive partners. It could also serve as an example of solutions for many regional and international conflicts nowadays. Thank you for your attention.
Pastor, thank you, sir, for those remarks. And again, your commitment, certainly for our part at Stimson and the broader War Legacies Working Group, we will take your charge on, and we really look forward to working with you, sir, and the embassy and the people of Vietnam on this relationship. I also understand that you can't stay, unfortunately, through the Q&A session, but we will welcome your colleague, Ms. Nguyen, to participate in your stead. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us this morning. Last and certainly not least, we are deeply honored to be joined by Ambassador Daniel Crittenbrink. Ambassador Crittenbrink joined the Career Foreign Service in 1994. He has completed multiple assignments focused on Asia, including as senior advisor on a North Korea policy at the Department of State, as senior director for Asian Affairs on the National Security Council. He is served in posts in China, in Japan, in Kuwait. He was confirmed as U.S. Ambassador to Vietnam in 2017 and is joining us virtually from Vietnam today. Ambassador, it's got to be past your bedtime there. I'm really deeply grateful to you for making the time to do this, and sir, the floor is yours.
Well, Brian, thank you for that very kind introduction, and most importantly, thank you for giving me the honor of participating in this very important event. I'm very grateful to you, to the Stimson Center, for all the work that you've done on these issues. And it's just, again, a tremendous honor and privilege to be here with all of you this evening, or rather this morning, your time. I have the privilege of getting paid for a living to talk about the U.S.-Vietnam partnership, and it's my great honor to do so. We're coming off the high of celebrating the formal anniversary, the 25th anniversary this past weekend on July 11 and 12 here in Hanoi. And I think it's really momentous to reflect on just how far we've come together in the last quarter century. And I think perhaps the most significant thing that we've achieved is that we have built a partnership and a friendship, and I think have come farther than maybe anyone could have ever dreamed. So again, I'm very grateful to you, Brian, and to the Stimson Center, but I'm also profoundly grateful to the leadership of Senator Patrick Leahy, to Tim Reeser, and other friends here in tonight's event. We wouldn't be here this evening without Senator Leahy. I had the great privilege of helping to support his visit to Vietnam last year, in which he led a Senate delegation of 9 US senators who visited sites across Vietnam. During that visit, he helped launch our official dioxin remediation efforts at the Bien Hoa Air Base near Ho Chi Minh City. So we're deeply grateful to Senator Leahy for his leadership and his support that has made today's partnership and friendship with Vietnam possible. I'm also honored to see my good friend, Ambassador Hakim Nap, on the line, one of the world's great diplomats, a good friend, someone who's dedicated his life to growing the U.S.-Vietnam partnership. And thank you, Ambassador Nap, for those eloquent remarks. And it's also humbling to be joined here by so many other speakers and participants who similarly have dedicated their lives to improving this partnership. It was extraordinary over this past weekend when we officially celebrated the 25th anniversary of the relationship. That celebration coincided with the signing of a new implementing agreement to bring the Peace Corps to Vietnam for the first time after many years of work. And I can think of no better way to symbolize our strengthening friendship than the idea of having Peace Corps volunteers on the ground in Vietnam, helping to teach English here, which I think will only further strengthen our partnership going forward. Obviously, as noted by Senator Leahy and Ambassador Nap, over the last 25 years, we've come a long way together. Really is extraordinary that today, as partners and friends, the United States and Vietnam are cooperating in virtually every way imaginable in a diverse array of sectors ranging from trade, development, education, healthcare, energy, and security. We're working towards our shared commitment to peace and prosperity. I believe wholeheartedly in the U.S.-Vietnam Comprehensive Partnership. As the United States often states, we are committed to supporting the development of a strong, prosperous, and independent Vietnam that contributes to international security, engages in free, fair, and reciprocal trade, and respects human rights and the rule of law. We further remain committed to strengthening our partnership and friendship based on a shared vision of a stable and peaceful Indo-Pacific, as well as our mutual respect for international law and one another's independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and respective political systems. But as we reflect on everything that we have achieved in the last 25 years, and as we celebrate the tremendous growth in this partnership and friendship, we should never forget that what we enjoy today is built on a foundation of trust and mutual understanding. And I think the central pillar in that foundation is our work over the last 30 plus years on humanitarian and war legacy issues. As my friend, the first American ambassador to Vietnam, Pete Peterson, told me 2 years ago, what the United States and Vietnam have achieved together is remarkable, but it is not a miracle and it is not an accident. It's the result of hard work, courage, and goodwill by leaders and people in both of our countries that's brought us here today. And I think nowhere has that work been more important than, again, on humanitarian and legacy of war issues. Initially, of course, it was those most deeply touched by our past tragic conflict, especially our veterans, but also bereaved family members and civilians on both sides who decided to face squarely the pain of our history while setting aside old enmity to create a new, brighter future for our children. Even as our partnership and friendship today remains squarely focused on the future and maintaining the peace and security and stability that will benefit our children for decades to come, we know that we must continue to responsibly address issues of the past. I think nothing has done more to build mutual trust and understanding than our work on these critical issues. Again, it forms a foundational element of the relationship. For example, the humanitarian issues related to accounting for America's missing. This issue is what we've, of course, referred to as the bridge to normalization, and that first brought us back together. And we remain deeply grateful to the sincere efforts of our Vietnamese partners in helping us to account for 727 missing Americans in Vietnam over the last 3 decades. But this work as well, I think, has helped to promote reconciliation and also has practical benefits as well. I think as we continue to build strategic trust by addressing issues of the past, we open the door to greater strategic cooperation in the future. As Senator Leahy and Ambassador Knopp so eloquently stated, as grateful as we are to our Vietnamese partners for the work that they have done to help us account for our own missing, we feel privileged and honored to be able to increase our efforts to assist Vietnam in locating its missing as well. And as Secretary of Defense Esper mentioned during his trip last November 2019, the United States intends to increase its efforts in this area, building on prior decades of work that has assisted Vietnam in locating its missing. We're also deeply grateful to Senator Leahy and others for their tremendous support. Of course, Tim Reeser and others in Congress for all their leadership and support on these many humanitarian and legacy of war issues, including now this newly energized area of assisting Vietnam with locating its own missing. Here at the embassy in Hanoi, we have formed an interagency team led by the Department of Defense, in which we're supporting the collection of relevant information from our archives in the United States and those of Vietnam, so that that information can be used to locate the remains of fallen Vietnamese here in Vietnam. We also are working to build the technological capacity of Vietnamese laboratories to positively identify remains which are located in Vietnam. Just last week, I participated in a ceremony to highlight a $2.4 million USAID grant that will upgrade Vietnam's DNA analysis capacity toward this end. I think as Ambassador Knopp and Senator Leahy also outlined, our work on legacy of war issues has extended to many other important areas. For example, in terms of clearing unexploded ordnance, particularly in central Vietnam, I'm happy to see friends like Pham Ha from Peace Trees on the line and others. The United States has been honored since 1994 to have invested more than $130 million in unexploded ordnance clearance activities in central Vietnam. We've removed around 700,000 unexploded items, educated more than 500,000 of the most vulnerable residents in Vietnam about the risks of disturbing ordnance they may find in the forest or their fields. Perhaps the most powerful statistic I can share is that over the last 3 years, there have been 0 injuries and 0 accidents in Quang Tri province due to the heroic UXO work carried out there. We remain confident that by 2025, we will achieve our goal of making Quang Tri province impact-free from UXO. We're also excited that we have expanded our work to other provinces in Vietnam as well, including Quang Binh province and also Thừa Thiên Huế province as well. As the Senator and the Ambassador also noted, that our important work on war legacies extends to remediating dioxin. I was honored to participate in the completion ceremony in 2018 at Da Nang International Airport, in which we handed over to the government of Vietnam the completed dioxin remediation work that had been done on a section of the airport that greatly expanded the usable area of the airport and removed a health threat from the Vietnamese public. And of course, as I mentioned, last year, Senator Leahy and 8 other senators helped us launch the new, much larger and more complex project at Bien Hoa Air Base outside of Ho Chi Minh City. Our work on war legacy issues also extends to assistance to Vietnamese with disabilities, especially in the 8 provinces most heavily sprayed during the war by Agent Orange. And again, we remain deeply grateful to Senator Leahy and his colleagues for support in this vitally important work. I think it's also important to note that our work on war legacy and reconciliation issues extends to our people-to-people engagement as well. Just during my time as ambassador, we've increased significantly our engagement with the Vietnam Veterans Association, I've also had the honor over the last year of becoming the first US ambassador to visit North Vietnamese martyr cemeteries, both at Trung Son in Quang Tri province and just a couple weeks ago at the Ho Chi Minh City Martyr Cemetery in outside of Ho Chi Minh City. I was deeply moved to have the privilege of going to these cemeteries, just as I was moved to have the opportunity to visit the Binh An or the Bien Hoa Cemetery, also outside of Ho Chi Minh City. And through these activities, our goal has been to demonstrate that we have tremendous respect and we honor greatly the sacrifice in the name of patriotism that was made on all sides. I think you can see that through these activities, we've built a foundation of trust and mutual understanding upon which we've built this partnership and friendship. I'm tremendously optimistic for the future growth of our partnership with Vietnam. I think the sky is the limit. I think you'll continue to see our partnership and our friendship expand, but the United States of America remains committed to addressing responsibly humanitarian and legacy of war issues, because we know through doing so, we will sustain the growth that I've described here. Thank you again, Brian, for including me. I'm deeply honored to be here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. It should be encouraging to all of us that our countries have exchanged senior diplomats that are so deeply passionate about improving the bilateral relationship. Thank you to both of you. So here's what's going to happen now. We're going to turn to our panel for an in-depth discussion, and that will be moderated by Mike Saray. Mike is a special correspondent for PBS NewsHour. He's also founder of Globe TV. I really recommend you take a look at that if you have not seen it already. This guy is a rock star. Mike served as a Marine officer in Vietnam from 1970 to 1971. He's returned to the country multiple times since then in his work as an award-winning correspondent and documentary producer. Mike, thanks so much for doing this, and I'm going to turn the dais over to you, sir, for the rest of the session.
Well, thank you, Brian, and the Stimson Center for including me in this very important discussion. The Vietnam War, or the American War, depending on your perspective, might have ended decades ago for American veterans like myself, but the casualties of that war continue for a new generation of Vietnamese. The US and Vietnam have been working together to reduce these dangerous legacies of war and hopefully someday eliminate them entirely. Our distinguished panelists today have been on the front lines of this good fight for the past 25 years since normalization and reconciliation between the two countries, and are joining us from Hanoi, Dong Ha, Washington, and Chester, Vermont. Thank you for all being here. Their full bios are posted on the Stimson Center organization website to find out more about them. Let's start out in Hanoi with Colonel Lê Dinh Vu, who is the Chief of Office of the Standing Board of National Steering Committee on Overcoming Post-War Consequences of Unexploded Ordnance and Toxic Chemicals in Vietnam, better known as Standing Committee 701. Prior to assuming his role, he spent 9 years working on science, technology, and environmental issues with the Vietnam Ministry of National Defense. He's also been a university lecturer for the past 20 years. Please switch to your German translation channel to hear Colonel Vu's opening remarks on our bilateral efforts in jointly dealing with the war legacy issues. Colonel Vu, welcome, and thanks for being here today.
Cảm ơn lời giới thiệu của ông Mike. Kính thưa Ngài Thượng nghị sĩ Patrick Leahy, Phó Chủ tịch Ủy ban chuẩn thi Thượng viện Hoa Kỳ. Kính thưa Ngài Đại sứ Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam Daniel Kristen Vinh. Kính thưa đồng chí Đại sứ Việt Nam tại Hoa Kỳ Hà Kim Ngọc. Thưa các quý vị đại biểu, hôm nay tôi rất vinh dự được thay mặt cho Văn phòng Cơ quan Thường trực Ban Chỉ đạo Quốc gia khắc phục hậu quả bom mìn và chất độc hóa học sau chiến tranh ở Việt Nam, hay còn gọi là Văn 701, phát biểu ý kiến tại hội thảo trực tuyến về khắc phục hậu quả chiến tranh nhân dịp 25 năm bình thường hóa quan hệ Việt Nam Hoa Kỳ do Trung tâm Stimson tổ chức. Trong 25 năm qua, kể từ khi Việt Nam và Hoa Kỳ bình thường hóa quan hệ, hai nước đã triển khai nhiều hoạt động hợp tác, phát triển, trong đó hợp tác về khắc phục hậu quả chiến tranh do ảnh hưởng của bom, chất độc hóa học và công tác tìm kiếm quân nhân mất tích trong chiến tranh đã được lãnh đạo cấp cao hai bên đặc biệt quan tâm, chỉ đạo tổ chức thực hiện và đã thu được những kết quả quan trọng, góp phần thúc đẩy quan hệ hợp tác vì lợi ích của nhân dân hai nước. Một số kết quả nổi bật như sau. Một là với tinh thần khép lại quá khứ, hướng tới tương lai trong giai đoạn 1973-1988, Việt Nam đã chủ động tìm và trao cho phía Hoa Kỳ 302 bộ hài cốt. Trong 35 hoạt động hỗn hợp từ năm 1988 đến nay, hai bên đã hợp tác tìm kiếm gần 1.000 hòm hài cốt đã được trao trả cho phía Hoa Kỳ. Trong đó, phía Hoa Kỳ đã nhận dạng ADN được hơn 700 trường hợp. Và đây là hình ảnh lễ trao trả hài cốt quân nhân Hoa Kỳ bị mất tích trong chiến tranh ở Việt Nam. Vừa qua, Cơ quan Phát triển Quốc tế Hoa Kỳ và Cơ quan Việt Nam tìm kiếm người nước ngoài mất tích đã ký bản ghi nhận ý định về việc tiếp nhận gói hỗ trợ nâng cao năng lực giám định hài cốt trong chiến tranh. Đặc biệt, trong đợt dịch COVID-19, các hoạt động hỗn hợp bị gián đoạn. Phía Việt Nam đã đơn phương khai quật một số vụ khó và đã tìm được một bộ hài cốt trên đỉnh núi cao tại tỉnh Quảng Bình. Và dự kiến sẽ tổ chức lễ trao trả hài cốt cho phía Hoa Kỳ vào ngày mai, 16 tháng 7 năm 2020. Hai là đã tổ chức thực hiện thành công dự án xử lý môi trường ô nhiễm dioxin tại sân bay Đà Nẵng. Đây là một trong 3 điểm nóng ô nhiễm dioxin ở Việt Nam được phát hiện cho đến nay. Số vốn đầu tư thực hiện do phía Việt Nam bảo đảm là gần 2,7 triệu đô la và phía Hoa Kỳ là 110 triệu đô la. Đã xử lý được 90.000 mét khối bùn đất nhiễm dioxin. Cô lập an toàn khoảng 50.000 mét khối bùn đất dưới ngưỡng cần xử lý. Đã kịp thời bàn giao đất đợt 1 vào năm 2017 để thực hiện dự án mở rộng sân bay quốc tế Đà Nẵng phục vụ tuần lễ cấp cao Diễn đàn Hợp tác Kinh tế Châu Á Thái Bình Dương APEC 2018 với sự hiện diện của ngài Tổng thống Donald Trump tại diễn đàn này. Và đây là hình ảnh của Thượng tướng Nguyễn Chí Vịnh, Thứ trưởng Bộ Quốc phòng Việt Nam và ngài cựu đại sứ Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam Ted Osius chứng kiến đất đã qua xử lý chất độc dioxin tại sân bay Đà Nẵng. Và hình ảnh lễ công bố hoàn thành dự án vào năm 2018. Tiếp theo, cơ quan chức năng của hai nước đã tiếp tục triển khai thực hiện dự án xử lý dioxin khu vực sân bay Biên Hòa giai đoạn 1. Dự kiến thực hiện trong vòng 7 năm, bắt đầu từ năm 2019, với số vốn ODA không hoàn lại từ chính phủ Hoa Kỳ là 183 triệu đô la Mỹ. Vốn đối ứng của Việt Nam là khoảng 4,7 triệu đô la. Mục tiêu của dự án là xử lý khoảng 300.000 mét khối đất trầm tích ô nhiễm. Và đây là hình ảnh Phó Thủ tướng Thường trực Chính phủ Trương Hòa Bình và ngài Patrick Leahy tham dự lễ khởi động dự án xử lý dioxin tại sân bay Biên Hòa giai đoạn 1 vào tháng 4 năm 2019. Ba là đã tổ chức thực hiện các dự án hỗ trợ người khuyết tật Việt Nam tại các tỉnh bị phun rải chất da cam dioxin. Hiện nay, Cơ quan Phát triển Quốc tế Hoa Kỳ đang phối hợp với Trung tâm Hành động Quốc gia khắc phục hậu quả chất độc hóa học và môi trường Việt Nam xây dựng dự án hỗ trợ cải thiện chất lượng sống của người khuyết tật tại các tỉnh bị phun rải nặng chất da cam. Với số vốn không hoàn lại từ chính phủ Hoa Kỳ là 65 triệu đô la. Dự kiến dự án sẽ khởi động trong năm 2020. Dự án được thực hiện sẽ có ý nghĩa to lớn trong việc nâng cao năng lực thực hiện các hoạt động chăm sóc sức khỏe, điều trị y tế, phục hồi chức năng, chỉnh hình, các dịch vụ xã hội, cải thiện chất lượng cuộc sống, bảo đảm hòa nhập xã hội cho người khuyết tật ở các tỉnh của Việt Nam bị phun rải chất da cam. Ở trên hình ảnh là lễ ký bản ghi nhận ý định giữa Văn phòng 701 và Cơ quan Phát triển Quốc tế Hoa Kỳ về hỗ trợ người khuyết tật Việt Nam tại các tỉnh bị phun rải chất da cam. Và đây là hình ảnh Ngài Thượng nghị sĩ Patrick Leahy với người khuyết tật tại thành phố Đà Nẵng, Việt Nam. 4 là đã tổ chức các hoạt động hợp tác khắc phục hậu quả bom mìn sau chiến tranh ở Việt Nam. Trong đó nổi bật là việc thực hiện cái bản ghi nhớ được ký giữa Ban Chỉ đạo Nhà nước về chương trình hành động quốc gia khắc phục hậu quả bom mìn sau chiến tranh và Bộ Ngoại giao Hoa Kỳ vào năm 2012. Và 9 nội dung hợp tác do Đại sứ quán Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam gửi Bộ Quốc phòng Việt Nam vào năm 2015. Ở đây là hình ảnh Đại tướng Ngô Xuân Lịch, Bộ trưởng Bộ Quốc phòng Việt Nam thăm khu trưng bày tại Trung tâm Hành động bom mìn quốc gia Việt Nam, VNMAC. Để có được kết quả nêu trên là do có sự quan tâm của lãnh đạo cấp cao, Quốc hội, Chính phủ, Bộ Quốc phòng hai nước. Nhân đây tôi xin được bày tỏ sự cảm ơn đối với Chính phủ, Quốc hội, Bộ Quốc phòng và nhân dân Hoa Kỳ đã giúp đỡ bảo đảm nguồn lực cho công tác khắc phục hậu quả chiến tranh ở Việt Nam. Tại hội thảo ngày hôm nay, tôi bày tỏ lời cảm ơn tới Ngài Thượng nghị sĩ Patrick Leahy về những đóng góp rất quan trọng của Ngài trong công tác khắc phục hậu quả chiến tranh ở Việt Nam. Về phương hướng hợp tác trong thời gian tới liên quan đến công tác khắc phục hậu quả chiến tranh, Văn phòng 701 mong muốn rằng các cơ quan chức năng của hai bên tiếp tục tổ chức thực hiện các nội dung được lãnh đạo cấp cao hai nước nêu trong tuyên bố chung, nhất là tuyên bố chung Việt Nam, Hoa Kỳ nhân chuyến thăm của Tổng thống Donald Trump tới Việt Nam vào tháng 11 năm 2017. Cụ thể là: thứ nhất là tiếp tục hợp tác tổ chức thực hiện tìm quân nhân mất tích trong chiến tranh Việt Nam để đưa họ trở về đoàn tụ với quê hương, gia đình. Thứ hai, tiếp tục hợp tác thực hiện dự án xử lý dioxin khu vực sân bay Biên Hòa, hướng tới xử lý hoàn toàn khối lượng đất trầm tích nhiễm tại khu vực này, ước tính khoảng 500.000 mét khối. Thứ ba, tiếp tục hợp tác thực hiện các dự án hỗ trợ người khuyết tật Việt Nam tại các tỉnh phun rải chất da cam dioxin nhằm cải thiện chất lượng cuộc sống, bảo đảm hòa nhập xã hội cho người khuyết tật tại những khu vực này. Và thứ tư là tiếp tục hợp tác tổ chức thực hiện biên bản ghi nhớ và 9 điểm hợp tác về khắc phục hậu quả bom mìn đã được thống nhất giữa hai bên. Trên đây là một số ý kiến phát biểu của Văn phòng 701 tại hội thảo trực tuyến ngày hôm nay. Trân trọng cảm ơn sự chú ý lắng nghe của các quý vị. Chúc hội thảo thành công tốt đẹp.
Colonel, thank you for the briefing and the update on what's transpiring in Vietnam. It's quite extensive. The projects are quite large and they keep growing. It's quite optimistic for the cause. We'll ask you to come back for some Q&A later on in the program. Next, we're going to switch to Washington, D.C., and Tim Reeser, who is the Senior Foreign Policy Aide to Senator Patrick Leahy, as well as the Democratic Clerk for the Senate Subcommittee on the Department of State and Foreign Operations. Tim joined Senator Leahy's team in 1985, initially working on judiciary issues and then foreign affairs. Since Senator Leahy became chairman of the Appropriations Subcommittee in 1989, he and the senator have used their inestimable personal and professional skills to launch, finance, and manage most of the most significant accomplishments the U.S. has had in this area. And as Senator Leahy said, Tim, it hasn't been easy over the years, but is it getting easier? You want to unmute Tim? Tim? Okay, we got you.
Technology is not my strong suit. Mike, thank you very much. Thanks, Brian. Obviously, the ambassadors. It is definitely getting easier. And I'm not going to speak for long. Senator Leahy spoke, and he's far better than I to describe the work that he's been doing over the last 30 years on U.S.-Vietnam relations. But there were times when it was not easy, and that was the result of a lack of trust and a lack of understanding and just resentment dating to the war on both sides. And so I think of all the things that are the most meaningful that have been achieved over the last 25 years as a result of Senator Leahy's trips to Vietnam and countless meetings with Vietnamese government officials, as well as officials in our government over the years, was to change the way we talk to each other and to turn what had been issues of real anger and resentment into ones where we have now cooperated and joined together to solve problems. And I think you've heard that it's transformed the relationship and has led to many other areas in which we are now working together. So overcoming that initial reluctance and resistance and antagonism that resulted from the war on both sides was the critical thing. And that was really a function of personal engagement. Senator Leahy meeting over and over with counterparts in Vietnam and in this country. And I think you've heard the results. Obviously, we have still a distance to go, but we're clearly working as partners. And as he said, we both countries need each other at this time. And there's so many ways that we can benefit from this relationship. And it was really, as the ambassador, both ambassadors said, it was these war legacy issues that opened the door for that to be possible.
Tim, Colonel View mentioned the completion of the project at Da Nang, and for our viewers, just to give you an idea of the scope and scale of this 5-year, $120 million project is pretty symbolic of the United States finally getting involved in Agent Orange remediation at the Da Nang International Airport.
That was an amazing project, unlike anything that I had ever seen. You know, on the Appropriations Committee, our job is to get the money. Obviously, it required vision and taking the initiative. If Senator Leahy had not decided that this was something that we needed to do, it would not have happened. But it was really the work of our embassy, of USAID, and of the Vietnamese Ministry of Defense, really figuring out how to deal with a very difficult problem that we had never taken on before. And so to see that huge structure, and Senator Leahy went there with Lieutenant General Vin when it was operating, was really, I think, illustrative of how far we had progressed. And Bien Hoa certainly is orders of magnitude bigger than that. So as the senator said, it's I think, having succeeded at Da Nang, and at the time we started, we didn't know whether we would achieve the results that we hoped to. But it was, in the end, it exceeded our expectations. At Bien Hoa, I think the fact that we have Da Nang behind us gives us confidence that while there will undoubtedly be unexpected issues that come up, you never know quite what's under the surface, and it will take significantly larger amounts of money and time, but there's no reason to think that we can't be successful there too.
Tim, I'm sure we'll talk more about Bien Hoa, the latest reclamation project that it's underway. But let's switch back to Vietnam and the other war legacy issue, and that is UXOs, Unexploded Ordnance. Ha Pham is with us today. She's the in-country director for Peace Trees Vietnam, one of the major NGOs working on UXO issues in Quang Tri. And just to refresh people's memories, that area up by, formerly it was called the DMZ, in the northern part of South Vietnam, the original South Vietnam and North Vietnam. But it's believed that there's much ordnance was dropped there during the war that were dropped in World War II in the Pacific. So a huge amount of explosives, and they say, even by the Defense Department estimates, 10% of them didn't explode. And so it's quite a problem. So Ha, thank you for being with us today, and give us a quick update on your activities and how they've changed over the years.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good evening from Vietnam, distinguished guests. My name is Ha Pham, and I'm country director of Peace Trees Vietnam in Vietnam. And it's such a great honor for me to join this event and share about the journeys of 25 years of Peace Trees Vietnam, working alongside Vietnamese people to reverse the legacy of war in this country, especially in the central Vietnam, Quang Tri province. And it's more meaningful for me personally because since I myself was born in Quang Tri province, and I have been working for Peace Trees for 18 years. So I feel something very connected to share with you about the ongoing impact of war legacy and about Peace Trees Vietnam have been working in this province for 25 years. Some of you may know that Peace Trees was born right after the diplomatic normalization between the US and Vietnam in 1995. And soon after that, our founder came to Vietnam and was immediately introduced to Quang Tri province, the most affected province in Vietnam by war aftermath. With Mike already mentioned that with the geographic location of the provinces where divided the country into two parts in wartime, at the 17 parallel DMZ, make Quang Tri suffer the most serious fightings during in wartime. By the end of the war, 100% of villages damaged and destroyed. And like Mike mentioned, also like the amount of weapon used in Quang Tri province during wartime is higher than total amount of weapon used in on the whole European areas during World War II. And 10% of them believe unexploded and remain dangerous. And that's the reason why Peace Trees, with the missions of healing the land and building safe and successful communities, came to this province and stayed that long with this area. We are very proud to be the very first U.S. organization permitted by Vietnamese government to conduct the humanitarian demining in Vietnam. The survey, there was a survey in 2009 showing that 83% of Quang Tri province contaminated from UXO. And since the war ended in 1975, over 8,500 people was either killed or injured because of the unexploded ordnance. And 31% of them are children. So that's also the reason. That's the reason to bring peace trees to this province. And with the financial support from the U.S. Department of State, and I have some photo to share also to show you how we. I don't know whether we can share this or not. It should be. It should be back to this. Yeah, so to show you how the contaminated in the province. This is the 2 districts that we are working on, and yeah, the amount, a huge amount of weapons still found after 45 years after the war end. And thanks for the support from the U.S. Department of State. Peace trees have destroyed over 23,000 UXO and cleared over 2,300 acres of land, of safe land. And we are very proud that we joined efforts with other organizations, other mine action organizations in Quảng Trị province to make Quảng Trị become the very good and successful model in mine action. Quảng Trị is the very first province in Vietnam established and operates successful the Mine Action Coordination Center and database units. We also applied a very successful new methodologies of survey and clearance, which brought the very significant progress in clearance. The areas cleared in Quảng Trị province within the last 5 years, from 2015 to 2020, make 80% of total areas clear 15 years before that period. So it's a huge progress made. Yes, but still many challenges, big challenges and difficulties for the province, for Vietnam in general and Quảng Trị province in particular. Quảng Trị is still among the poorest province in Vietnam because of the legacy of war. Still about 60-70% of land contaminated, and still a lot of work to do. Let me stop sharing.
If I may interrupt for a second, for people who have not had the opportunity to see the type of work that your organization does and some of the other UXO remediation groups up there, I think it's important to note that we're never going to find, and you guys will readily admit this, you'll never find all the unexploded ordnance.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But how do you still make it the area safe, which is the ultimate goal?
Yeah. To mention the very ambitious goal of making Quảng Trị become the very first province in Vietnam free from impact, like Ambassador Crittenbrick mentioned before, is the way that we apply the new methodologies in clearance by tracking cluster munition, and then frame the areas that most contaminated, and make it and prioritize our resources and efforts to clear those that areas. So free from impact here doesn't mean that we clear all of the UXO left from the world, but make it free from impact, make the most areas where need to be clear and safe for people to use.
One of the most impressive things I saw over there were the billboards that alerted villagers, young people, with a telephone number where they could call to get assistance to remove unexploded ordnance. So the fact that I know you can detect a lot of them, but the idea is for the people to know how to identify them and alert the property authorities to get them removed.
Yeah. That's belong to the what we call the risk education program, which integrates into the clearance operation also. So we in Quảng Trị, we have the hotline number where people can call whenever they found the suspected items or UXO, and the coordination unit will send the EOD team to deal with that. So each and every people in Quảng Trị province, they know and learn about that hotline number to call whenever they have issue with the landmines or UXO.
Thank you for your update, and most importantly for your work. We'll have more questions for you from our audience in a few moments. Let's switch back to the other key war legacy issue, Agent Orange. Susan Hammond is the executive director and founder of the War Legacies Project, and she'll update us on what's being done in this area. Quick background, Susan is the daughter of an American Vietnam veteran. She has firsthand experience with the consequences of Agent Orange from her extensive work in Vietnam. She is a leading expert on Agent Orange and the need to help those with disabilities caused by the presumed illnesses caused by Agent Orange. Susan, welcome. Thank you for all your work, and bring us up to date on what has been the major accomplishments on the Agent Orange front.
Thank you, Mike. First, I need to echo my thanks to Senator Leahy and Tim for their hard work to address war legacy issues, not only just in Vietnam, but also Cambodia and Laos. We would not be where we are today without their commitment, or the commitment of people like Charles Bailey, formerly at the Ford Foundation, Chuck Searcy of Project Renew, and Hatfield Consultants in Canada, who really led the charge in helping us get to the point where we are today. Much has been accomplished over the past 25 years, as has been mentioned earlier, and we have a lot to celebrate. However, I believe that until the US finds a way to acknowledge that harm has been done to potentially generations of Vietnamese that has been caused by the dioxin-contaminated herbicides, this last significant ghost of the war, as former Ambassador Ray Burkhart called it, will not be put to rest and relations will not be completely normalized. USAID stresses that support for people with disabilities in Vietnam is done regardless of cause. And what this means in practice is that much of the funding has gone to programs that supported people that would not be considered by the Vietnamese as Agent Orange victims. Worthy beneficiaries, without a doubt, but not the population that has been most impacted by Agent Orange. I am hopeful that this new round of funding will find a way to reach those with severe physical and often cognitive disabilities. For those children, some of which are now adults, medical intervention is too little and too late. These children need 24/7 care. I want to give you a little of an example of what that care looks like and tell you about a typical family that I work with. V lives in Tin Phuc, about an hour by bus from the provincial center. V has no control over her arms and legs, is unable to walk, and never mind sit up or stand. She is not able to communicate with her mother other than with her eyes. Her mother wakes up before dawn to prepare the cooking fire and makes a very thin rice porridge for V's breakfast. For about an hour, her mother cradles V in her arms and carefully, lovingly spoon feeds her daughter the porridge. V's siblings are scrambling around the house, getting themselves ready for the 2-kilometer walk to school. As a single mother, V cannot work in her nearby fields or go to the market because it's not safe to leave her 12-year-old daughter alone in the house. V's bed is next to the drain in the wall that leads to the cistern. Several times a day, V's mother throws water across the tiled floor under V's bed, as they cannot afford diapers. She then gives V one of her several sponge baths for the day. Lunch is another hour-long process, but this time V's mother first chews her food into small enough and soft enough pieces that V will not choke on it. She has to prop her up just right on the bed, which is difficult with arms and legs flailing. More often than not, V is in pain and may have several seizures before the day is over. V does receive a stipend from the Vietnamese government, and her mother also receives a caregiver stipend totaling about $50. Many, if not all, people with disabilities in Vietnam at this time do receive a support from the government. This is the only income that the family reliably has, but is quickly spent on protein powder, rice, vegetables, medication, and other necessities for V's care. Dinner is another hour-long process to feed V, and her mother then makes sure all the other children have done their schoolwork. Finally, she prepares her daughter for bed, but since they sleep in the same bed, she hopes that V will get a few hours of sleep so that she can sleep as well. One can sometimes feel helpless when meeting families such as V's, but what I've learned over the years is that there are things that can be done, if not for the child, then for the family. But you must work directly with the families and work within the existing system. In our case, we work with the local Red Cross. Less than $1,000 per family can go a long way. You can help fix the roof so the rain does not pour in during the monsoon, or add a bathroom. You can help dig a well or buy a pump and pipes to bring water to the house. Provide a scholarship for their children who are able to go to school so they do not drop out in the 6th grade, and hope that they're able to get a job so that they can take care of their siblings when their parents die. You can help buy the family a cow to breed so that when they face an unexpected expense, they can sell the calf for several $100s, often more than their yearly income. You can also help the mother set up a small business she can run from her home. For V's family, we worked with the Red Cross to send volunteers several times a week so that her mother could go into the fields and shop in the market. We also purchased them a cow. The families we work with rarely ask for help. They're so used to the routine of caring for their loved ones that they often have a hard time imagining what will help them. However, they're so grateful that the Red Cross has come to visit them to learn about their situation. And they're grateful that I, as an American, wanted to learn about their lives and hear from them about what can make a small difference. I tell the families that the funding that the Red Cross will use to support them is coming from the widow, family, and friends of a US veteran named Bob Feldman, who died of his own exposure to Agent Orange. They are touched when we explain that this American family wanted them to know that they understand at least a little bit about what it meant to be impacted by Agent Orange, that their pain was acknowledged. I can only do this on a small scale, but if this one man and his family, through my small organization and the local Red Cross, can acknowledge the pain from Agent Orange and provide support to over 500 families, imagine how powerful the acknowledgement of the US government would be to the hundreds and thousands of families impacted. Imagine if working with local Vietnamese partners, the US could provide direct support to all of these families that are believed to be the most heavily impacted by Agent Orange. Then this last ghost of war can be put to rest over the next decade, at least in Vietnam. For Laos and the children of American veterans, that's a whole nother story in another webinar. Thank you.
Susan, thank you for that update. You mentioned at the very beginning this lack of acknowledgement, formal acknowledgement by the United States on the cause and effects of the Agent Orange problem. And Tim Reeser and everybody in Washington has to do this balancing act of remediation and also victims assistance. At the end of the day, the Vietnamese people that you work with, which do you think is more important, the remediation or the victims assistance?
Oh, definitely the victim assistance. I mean, they certainly appreciate the remediation, but for most of the families I work with, they're never going to get to Bien Hoa. They're never going to get to the Da Nang airport. They are trying to struggle day by day to help care for their family members. So definitely, I would say support to the people who are believed to be affected. And of course, we cannot prove 1%, 100% one way or the other, but the sense is that these herbicides have caused dramatic harm to hundreds of thousands of families. And until those families are reached, I don't think we can completely end this problem.
Thank you, Susan. We're going to open it up for questions now. The people can use the Q&A chat aspect on the Zoom here. And to start it off, we're going to start with Charles Bailey from the War Legacies Working Group, former Ford Foundation representative in Vietnam in 1997, and also with the Aspen Institute's Agent Orange in Vietnam program. And Colonel Vu, this is the first question is being addressed to you directly, sir. And I remind people again to go to the translation section, to the German section. But Colonel Vu, the question is, what is your personal long-term vision for Vietnam's victims of Agent Orange? And how would you like to see them living in in the future compared to today? And finally, what more can the U.S. do to help achieve this vision? Colonel Vu?
Cảm ơn ông Mike. Về câu hỏi của ông, tôi xin trả lời như sau. Trong những năm qua, việc khắc phục hậu quả chất độc da cam dioxin là đối với con người luôn được Việt Nam rất quan tâm, và đây cũng là một cái mong mỏi của cá nhân các nạn nhân nhiễm chất độc da cam dioxin tại Việt Nam. Hoạt động này vừa mang ý nghĩa nhân đạo, vừa mang ý nghĩa nhân văn rất sâu sắc. Tôi thì mong muốn trong thời gian tới, lãnh đạo và các tổ chức cá nhân Hoa Kỳ sẽ tiếp tục quan tâm và quan tâm hơn nữa trong việc giúp đỡ các nạn nhân chất độc da cam dioxin tại Việt Nam để có điều kiện tiếp nhận dịch vụ chăm sóc sức khỏe, tăng khả năng tiếp cận việc làm, học tập và bảo đảm cuộc sống để họ có thể hòa nhập xã hội như bao người khác. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you, Colonel Vu. We're going to extend the session a little bit. So please bear with us a little bit. We have a lot more information to go through. The second question is from Charles Bailey, is directed to Tim Reeser. And Tim, as things stand now, the U.S. has committed $30 million a year over the next 10 years to clean up the dioxin at Benoit, and intends to provide $13 million a year over the next 5 years to assist Agent Orange victims. What would need to happen? The question is, what would need to happen before the U.S. could make a greater commitment to the several 100,000 Agent Orange victims? For example, double the annual allocation and make it run for 10 years rather than 5. And I know we've talked about this before. That is the difficult balancing act you have in trying to fund these projects. Tim, open your mic there.
First of all, I really want to acknowledge HAFAM and Peace Trees International. I mean, what an amazing accomplishment to have largely eliminated the threat from unexploded landmines and bombs in Guangxi province. I mean, I don't think people have any idea how difficult and dangerous that work is. And that, I think, has given us reason to be hopeful that we can, over time, eliminate, for all practical purposes, the threat of UXO in Vietnam. It obviously is an immense task, but the fact that they have achieved what they have in Guangxi is just incredible to me.
Tim, if I might add something that re-emphasize what Ambassador Crittenberg said at the very beginning, is that they've gone almost 3 years now without an incident up in Quang Tri province, which is quite extraordinary.
It's absolutely amazing to me when you consider what it was like not that long ago. And so they have shown that, you know, we can do this together, and there's a lot more to do. And Susan mentioned Laos. That's a whole other conversation that we're working on. But Peace Trees and others, Norwegian People's Aid, et cetera, Project Renew, have done an incredible job to show what's possible in dealing with the UXO problem. And also Susan's comments, I just think were so on point. I've met some of these families and seen the kind of situation that she described, and it's just heartbreaking and overwhelming to see.
I will show, as you speak here, I'll show a little bit of video from a recent trip I had over there doing a story with some of the victims of Agent Orange.
Yeah, to see what this requires of parents and siblings to provide just the basic necessities to those who have been so severely disabled. I mean, it's hard to imagine that they can keep going day after day. So I think Susan, you know, put her finger on the real crux of this. Because ultimately, this is about people and about trying to improve the lives of those who were most affected. There are many people with disabilities in Vietnam, as there are in other countries, from all kinds of causes, motorcycle accidents, you name it. But we're talking about people who, through no fault of their own, were exposed either directly or through passage on by generation to terrible cognitive and physical disabilities that have made them entirely dependent on their families, who are often extremely poor and have nothing, and no, as Susan said, no real idea beyond just what they've been able to undertake themselves of how they could do better for their children. And so in answer to your question, Mike, first of all, I've never really felt that the dollars amounts tell the whole picture. It costs a lot more to, for example, build a structure like was shown in Da Nang than it does to train someone or to provide basic assistance to a family of a disabled person. It's a little bit like the cost of a helicopter versus some other type of expense. But there's no question that while carrying out these programs, setting up these programs involves working with local organizations. Some of them are government organizations. Some of them are sort of quasi-government civil society organizations. That takes a lot of work to build the relationships and to ultimately help them have the capacity to carry out these types of disability programs. And
Tim, from a funding aspect, is it more difficult to get money for victims assistance than it is for major remediation projects?
I don't think so. It should not be more difficult. For us, it's more a question of where can we do more? And we have expanded from 1 province to 8 in not that much time. And we've gone from $1 million to $13 million. And if, obviously it's a zero-sum game for us on the appropriations staff. If we put money into one thing, it means we don't do something else. So we have to obviously make choices. But if we were presented with a request for additional funding for victims assistance, for disability programs in additional provinces, or to expand what we're doing in the provinces where USAID is currently working, we would certainly give that very serious consideration. We just know that these programs are not easy to implement. A little money, as Susan said, can go a long way for a family like the one she described. And so the dollar amounts don't necessarily tell the whole story, but we've shown that we can do more because we've expanded over the years, and we intend to increase the number of provinces where these programs are being carried out. So I don't see any reason why we can't do more. But ultimately, our job is to help the Vietnamese take care of their own people. We can't kind of take on that whole responsibility. So to the extent that we have good partners at the local level who we can provide training to and other types of assistance, then I think you will find a lot of willingness to do so.
Thanks, Tim. Ambassador Crittenbrink, since I know you're still on the line, thank you for staying with us on this. One of the questions has come up about wanting an update on the Benoit project that has been approved. It's, I think the United States has going to put up $300 million and the Vietnamese $200 million. And some question the United States' ability to, Tim and Senator Leahy have done a great job making this a bipartisan issue and getting great bipartisan support. Can you tell us what the kind of status is on the Benoit project, and also in kind of the context of being able to deliver on the promise here, given the political climate?
Well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, I'm happy to report that, as I noted, it was moving to be together with Senator Leahy and 8 other senators in the spring of 2019. I believe it was April, when we formally launched the Bien Hoa project on the airbase there. Then in December of 2019, we had a ceremony to commence the actual work being launched, where we were actually moving dirt and had equipment on the ground and the like. And so we're on schedule. COVID has presented some challenges, as you might imagine, in terms of bringing personnel in and the like, but the work is underway. We're generally on schedule. We hope that this will be done, and this will obviously be done in a systematic, piece by piece, step by step fashion. We hope to have some concrete results to demonstrate in the not too distant future. But as you've outlined, it's a 10-year project. We believe it's underway, and I think there's one point that's really worth underscoring here. At Da Nang Airport, while all of our work was, of course, completely dependent on the cooperation and support of our Vietnamese partners, Da Nang was largely a USAID led project that we completed and then handed back over to our Vietnamese partners. I think what's interesting and encouraging about Bien Hoa is that the government of Vietnam is in the lead on the project there, and USAID and the US government are in support of their activities there. And again, we do this in a piece by piece fashion, but our cooperation couldn't be better with the central government, the Ministry of National Defense, Committee 701, and all the many entities that are involved, but also with the authorities of Dong Nai province, because the project involves both the base and some surrounding areas. So I think the good news is we're on track. We are, in fact, moving dirt and conducting remediation work as we speak. And as I said, we hope to have some concrete outcomes to announce soon. Over. Thank you.
And Tim, I've asked you this before in the context of my reporting. You've gotten the money approved. The appropriation has been approved. Is there any question that the money can be delivered and continued? Or is that a fight that you have to keep making on Capitol Hill?
It's an annual appropriations process, so we always have to be sure. Senator Leahy, he's the vice chairman of the Appropriations Committee. He has to be sure that the funds are included each year. But as vice chairman, that's, I think, a fairly easy job for him to do. I think the funding, I'm not concerned about as long as we see continued progress, and we have every reason to think that we will. So my own view is that we're in a good position to carry out the project and to ensure that every year both the Department of Defense and USAID contribute, in each case, $15 million for a total of 30. To ensure that it continues as planned. And the fact that DOD is involved, I think, is really an important factor because it's opened up opportunities for them and the Vietnamese Ministry of Defense to work together on something that is very meaningful to the Vietnamese government. And obviously, that relationship is important to us. So the money for the Bien Hoa project, I'm not worried about.
All right. Thank you, Tim.
I add just one additional comment to really underscore, I think, Tim's outstanding remarks. I think as ambassador, it's been really gratifying to me to see the bipartisan support for the work that's being done at Bien Hoa and on other war legacy issues. And a point that I think we often make, and that I know many of the senators who have traveled here to Vietnam have made, of course, this work is about dealing responsibly with the past. Of course, it's the right thing to do, but it's also a key element in our current and future partnership and friendship with Vietnam. And it's a key investment in growing this key strategic partnership we have with the Vietnamese. And I think we should recognize that as well. And I think that recognition has just added additional support for this important work. Over.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I guess that is the driving issue. The relationship between the United States and Vietnam has never been more important than it is now. Huge trading partners, strategic partners. Is that really giving the momentum to get more progress in the next 25 years than the first 25 years?
Well, I'd certainly like to think so, Mike. I think there is a building momentum in the relationship, and to be joined on this call by so many people who have been present at the creation and involved for the entire 25 years. I think many of them would tell you that they wouldn't have dreamt we would have achieved so much in 25 years. It does make me optimistic for the next quarter century together. I do think it's extraordinary. We built a partnership and friendship that we refer to one another in that way. And as I remarked to my colleague and friend, Ambassador Hakim Nap, I was quite struck over the weekend as both of us were talking about the formal anniversary of the relationship. We use almost identical language to describe one another and our partnership and our interests together in the region. And again, I think the work on war legacy issues has really helped build the foundation that makes that possible. And I think it's critical that we keep doing it going forward. But you're right, there is momentum growing, and I think you'll see our cooperation expand even more dramatically in the next 25 years.
Well, having been stationed at the Da Nang Air Base and seeing that contaminated area and seeing what's been done to reclaim it was very moving for me. And I guess my final question to all of you here is, what do we think we're going to see in our lifetime? Maybe starting with Ha, can you tell us, do you think in your lifetime the UXO problem can be handled in Quang Tri province in most of Vietnam? You want to turn your microphone on? There you go.
Yeah. From Peace Tree's perspective, I mean, as the grassroots organization, we believe that we also believe that each individual can make a difference. So within Peace Trees Vietnam, besides the support from the government, we also receive a generous support from the individual donor, and to I mean, and we believe that the war legacy, the legacy of war, the war legacy can also be sold by the people and people type. Besides the many efforts made to in clearances in mine action. And yes, the big challenge is for Quang Tri individual to meet the goals of being the first provinces in Vietnam to be free from impact. But I believe that with the joint efforts, with the strong support from the local and international communities, it's possible. It's possible to have the safer and brighter future, and to not only Quang Tri province but the whole Vietnam.
Susan, you've been at this a long time. Mm-hmm. Do you share the ambassador's optimism?
I do, yeah, I really do. And I remember that the language of the two countries talking past each other on this Agent Orange issue, not being able to even have common language to discuss it. And that was only about 15, 16 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. It took many years into normalization of relations for the two sides to be able to talk to each other. And now we are working very close together with the Vietnamese and the Vietnamese partners. I mean, who would have thought even 5 years ago that sailors, I'm sorry, from the USS Roosevelt would come to the Vietnam Association of Victims of Agent Orange Center in Da Nang and sing and dance with these children. That was unimaginable to me. So I think the next 25 years, that I'm hoping as much as 25 years, that the funding will be available, that we can really reach out to many more families who are affected. And ideally we'll see, we haven't talked yet about maybe are there problems in some of the other smaller air bases that the US branch hand used, and whether we can approach that as another thing to address. But I am optimistic, and I appreciate the Ambassador Crittenbrink's language that he uses when he discusses these issues of war legacies.
Colonel Vu, a final question, sir, if you can still hear us, and that is Vietnam has demonstrated its ability in containing the COVID crisis, probably better than most countries around the world. Now with what Vietnam is doing in the area of UXO remediation, do you think once again Vietnam will become a world leader in solving a crisis like this and maybe be able to help other countries as well with their problems?
Cảm ơn sự đánh giá của ông về cái sự nỗ lực. Và tôi hoàn toàn tin tưởng vào cái sự nghiệp khắc phục hậu quả bom mìn, hậu quả chiến tranh do Việt Nam phối hợp với các cái tổ chức cũng như là chính phủ Hoa Kỳ và các cái cá nhân tổ chức Hoa Kỳ, hoàn toàn tin tưởng vào cái đánh giá, cái nhận định của ngài đại sứ đã phát biểu, cũng như các phát biểu của các cá nhân vừa xong. Và chúng tôi tin tưởng rằng với cái sự nỗ lực của chúng tôi cũng như là các cái sự hỗ trợ giúp đỡ của phía Hoa Kỳ, thì cái việc mà khắc phục hậu quả chiến tranh của Việt Nam nói chung và các cái đất nước khác nói riêng thì nó sẽ rút ngắn được cái thời gian và đem lại cái niềm hạnh phúc cho nhân dân của đất nước chúng tôi, cũng như các đất nước mà chịu ảnh hưởng của cái hậu quả chiến tranh. Và chúng tôi cho rằng cái mô hình hợp tác giữa chính phủ Việt Nam với chính phủ Hoa Kỳ theo cái nhận định của ngài đại sứ Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam sẽ trở thành cái mô hình điển hình cho sự phối hợp giữa các bên trong quá trình khắc phục hậu quả chiến tranh. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you, Colonel Vu, and thank you to Tim Reeser and Senator Leahy for getting our Department of Defense on board here, a major accomplishment. After all these years, the Department of Defense is participating in the funding of these projects. And Jim, I guess the biggest question maybe all of us have is, what can we do to keep you and Senator Leahy on the job for the next 25 years?
Yes, that would be, if we could figure that one out, our lives would be a lot easier. But, you know, there are others who Senator Leahy has taken to Vietnam, Republicans and Democrats, who are to some extent the next generation in a sense. Senator Whitehouse, he actually as a child spent time in Southeast Asia because of his father, who was a diplomat. Senator Murkowski and others. And you know, as Senator Leahy said, they were all very deeply affected by that trip and have not stopped talking about it. And so, you know, I think there will be new people who will carry on. And obviously the Vietnamese, the next generation, as Senator Leahy talked about. You know, he always saw the war legacies issues as about people and about trying to get to a different place with Vietnam. In order to do that, it meant we had to deal with the past. And that has been the focus. But ultimately, it was in order to be able to work together on other issues, as the ambassador has talked about, security cooperation, climate change, you name it. I mean, our relations are now comprehensive in ways that War Legacies was only really kind of the door that opened that opportunity for us. And there's still a lot to be done, as Susan described, as Peace Trees is doing and others. But we have, I think, shown that going forward, there are new people who will carry on. We've tried to show what's possible. We've tried to change the relationship to one that is cooperative rather than antagonistic. And so, no one can predict the future, but I think that what we've heard today illustrates that there's every reason to be optimistic, and that both countries will benefit from that.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for not only joining us today, but more importantly, for your incredible work on trying to resolve these very difficult situations in Vietnam. And we're very appreciative of it. And hopefully we can make that more progress in the next 25 years and continue to keep this high on the United States' foreign agenda. A copy of this program will be listed on the Simpson website about where you can see on YouTube a replay of this, share it with your friends and share it with others who might want to get involved in either the policy issues or the fundraising issues. I'd personally like to thank, in addition to the Stimson Center for allowing me to participate in this, a couple of people who have really educated me over the years in Vietnam and the United States about these problems. Charles Bailey, Chuck Searcy, Heidi Kuhn, Dick Hughes, Larry Vetter. I've learned so much and really am overwhelmed by the work that all these NGOs are doing over there for the people of Vietnam, and we really appreciate it. So thank you all for joining us today, and may we have more continued success in the next 25 years in resolving the War Legacies issue. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mike, Brian, and everyone. What an honor to be here. Thanks for organizing this. And always a pleasure to see you.
Same here.
Thanks for everything. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Susan. And let's be in touch.
Yep, for sure.